you can take this one step further, and that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go ahead and add a clean layer. I'm going to go down here and control click our cavities that we just created to get the selection I want. And then I'm going to go, I'm going to my selection. I'm going to modify this by contracting it 2 pixels. And then I'm going to go edit, stroke. My foreground color is white. And on the outside of my selection, I'm going to stroke that with 2 pixels of white. And I'm going to leave this I'm going to leave this selection like it is, because I only want to affect from the selection outward. I'm going to go in here to my filter, Gaussian blur, and that's going to be way hot. That doesn't make any sense. Try our selection again. So with this selected and our pixels on the outside, I'm going to go up here to filter and blur, Gaussian blur, and I'm going to pull that way down. I'm going to blur it probably about 2 pixels, so 1.5 or so. So we still have our hard edge, but a little bit of blurring going away from it. And I'm going to go ahead, and with that still selected, I'm going to go ahead and call this Pickup Highlights. And I'll go ahead and save the project. It just occurs to me from time to time just to save my project. It's a real good habit to be in. You never know which click of the mouse is going to cause something to lock up on you. So with that layer selected, I'm going to go ahead and add a layer mask. And again, our icon is changed here. We're highlighted there, so we know we're good to go ahead and draw in our layer mask. And I'm going to back out of this a little bit so we get a little better perspective on what's going on. And I'm going to grab my linear gradient tool. And if we were to look at this, we would see actually we have lighting coming from a lot of different directions, but because these surfaces are in effect tilted to our camera and to our light source, we don't really know where the light is coming from, but it appears to be strongest here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a gradient in my layer mask and just pop it across there. So you may have to kind of toy with it a little bit. And maybe circular gradient would work better. I'm going to try that. Yeah, it's not bad. But it doesn't really give us the look I'm going for, but there we go. I mean, that's kind of interesting. Ideally, I would want it to be the same on the tops of both of these from whatever direction, and maybe I just need to reverse my colors. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. And then I'm going to go ahead and my RGB selected. I'm just going to affect the transparency a touch and just bring that up so it's just hinting at picking up a reflection. And that looks pretty good. Now you don't really see that, but if I turn that layer on and off, it really jumps out at you. I mean, you can definitely tell it's there and it's doing something for the pickups. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And here's the beauty. Now here's the beauty of working in layers like we are. You remember earlier when I drug these pickups into the project, I didn't really know where they were going to live. If we go all the way back to this layer, and everything, these 2 layers above it are also pickups. We turn those 3 off, all of our pickups go away. We've locked all those together, so now I can go in here and grab my tool, my move tool, and if I wanted all of that up there, you can see that our cavity outlines and our cavity highlights as well as the pickups, it's all moved together because they're all linked together. We didn't physically cut any holes in our top, and that's a pitfall that I did it when I first started with Photoshop, and that's a pitfall that you want to really make things believable, so you start cutting holes in everything behind, what you're trying to anchor into the photo, And it's a mistake because if you need to go back and tweak something, then you've got a big hole cut in your maple and in your green and even in the black that's on our very back layer. You don't want to do that. You want to leave yourself as many options as possible. This is the best way to do it. You can, typically in a situation like this, you're building from foreground backward because we started with our pickups. And so it really makes no sense to cut a hole in it because you end up with a background layer that masks all the pixels behind it anyway. So if you're ever tempted to do that, fight the temptation because it can come back to bite you. All right, so moving on. I'm going to call this cavities before we do move on and save that. Pretty happy with that. Can take this one step further. We have our pickups here. I'm going to go ahead and copy that layer, bring it down below. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to make sure that black is my foreground color. I'm going to go Edit, Fill, and I'm just going to fill those with black. And I'm going to grab my Move tool after dropping the selection, and I'm going to ease them off just a touch. All right. So basically what we're going for is we're going to create a shadow, but obviously the cavity and the other things we've created are not going to cast a shadow because they're actually down below the surface of the guitar. The only thing in this case that's going to cast a shadow is probably going to be the black bobbins, because the white bobbin or the cream bobbins are not going to really cast a shadow because they've got cavity the other direction of our lighting. So what we want to do is go in, and we're just going to come in, well, let me get this right. Going to come in about right there. And I'm going to cut all of that away. Then I'm just going to move my selection over. Same thing, right about the center of the pole pieces. Cut all that away. Now, if I turn these off, you can see we've got just a little bit of a shadow there. And I cut that one a little too far. Go back and try that again. About where it hits right there. I'm really looking at where my marquee selection is locking up with the beginning of this curve in the lower part of the cavity. That's where we want our shadow to extend to. So I'll get rid of that one. I'm going to move this over. Same thing there. Get rid of that. Then all we have to do is go in here, little filter, blur. And we blur that, I don't know, 8 or 10 pixels. And we can move that up to make sure we're getting that. I missed my selection there a little bit, but I'd rather have too much there than not enough, because I can easily go in with my erase tool and clean that up. Double check over here to make sure we don't have anything weird there. Those shadows are a little harsh. It makes them look like they're really sitting above the surface of the guitar. We don't really want to do that. We want to just have a little bit of shadow there to sell the effect. And you can see the way we applied if we go back to this layer, which is our highlights, you can see the way we've applied it so the light is hitting these upper edges, and there are no highlights down here in shadow. It's important that you keep all of that stuff, keep in mind where your light sources are coming from. Like I said, the top of the guitar really looks like there are multiple lights in the room, and there probably would be during a video or a photo shoot like this.